Few people will argue that the Atari 2600 wasn't one of the most iconic and influential video game consoles of all time. But despite being an entire generation's and arguably the whole world's introduction to video games, it hasn't been embraced by later generations the way old Nintendo and even old Sega consoles have. Maybe it's memories of the bad business decisions that almost killed video games in the United States. Maybe it's just one step too far back. Maybe modern gamers can still relate to Sonic and Mario, but they can't quite relate to the more archaic arcade ports of the Atari 2600. Or maybe it's the constantly changing hands of the company and the poor use of the brand over the years. If it's the latter, current leadership has done quite a bit to improve the image of Atari in general, and the 2600 in particular in recent years. From snatching up retro gaming studios and IP to putting out great collections celebrating the entire history of video games, Atari is trying to become the premier name in retro gaming. But possibly nothing quite hits that target and that nostalgia button quite like the Atari 2600 and 7800 Plus consoles. Hi, I'm Paul, and this is Indie Pop Productions, pop culture from an independent point of view. And this is the Atari 2600 Plus Pac Man Special Edition console. So what is this, you might ask? There have been a ton of reproductions over the years. Most of them are just cheap little emulation machines that kind of look like an Atari 2600, but come preloaded with a bunch of old Atari ROMs. The flashback consoles by Act Games are the most well-known of those. More recently, My Arcade put out the GameStation Go and the GameStation Pro. A little higher quality, but they do more or less the same thing. This is also a little emulation machine. The guts of this thing don't look much like the guts of an original Atari 2600. It is a smaller replica that can trick original Atari game ROMs into thinking they're being played on original hardware. But it has one big difference. It doesn't come preloaded with a bunch of old Atari ROMs. This thing plays original Atari 2600 and 7800 cartridges. And it even works with original joysticks and paddles. And the new wireless controllers that work with this thing, they are backwards compatible with original hardware. It's pretty cool. My love of vintage Atari is well documented on this channel, but I have also acknowledged that it's probably more work than it's worth for most people. For your average person, I would say an emulation device that you could easily connect to a modern TV or monitor through HDMI is gonna be the better experience. I wasn't actually planning on getting one of these things. I like the original hardware, and despite the fact that I respect what Atari's done, I didn't think it was for me. But this Pac Man Special Edition is just so cool looking, and it dropped to a price on Amazon that I just couldn't pass up. You can regularly find the 2600 Plus and 7800 Plus models for $100 or less on Amazon. A good bit less if you're willing to get the original 2600 Plus or the 7800 Plus. But for me, this one was worth a few extra bucks just for the design alone. And I'll admit, while I enjoy playing old consoles on my CRT TV, the idea of taking this and hooking it up to a capture card on my computer to capture footage without needing to run it through any other converters is appealing. Before we get started, don't forget to like and subscribe. I try to put retro video game content like this out every week. Liking and subscribing and even commenting and sharing not only helps other people find the channel, but also make sure it's easier for you to find my next video when it drops. Now, let's crack this thing open and go play some games. For some reason, they sent it in this plastic wrap. I was a little surprised by that. I haven't seen any videos online, any unboxings that had this plastic wrap. I don't know if everybody else just took it off first, but mine did come in this little, like a little bag that I had to undo. Thought that was a little odd. And then I noticed right there on the bottom, you'll see the the seal. It's not broken. It's like it came undone. So I don't know. That looks like it's been curled with heat or age. A little odd. But go ahead and open it up. I mean, it looks like a brand new box. I was worried for a minute that it might be used or refurbished, but it doesn't look like it. I mean, it looks like they may have put it in the bag because for whatever reason that seal came undone, but it doesn't look like anybody's ever gotten here. Everything looks great. I do love the design of this. It's 4-switch like my actual Atari 2600. It's got all those same ports except, of course, the USB-C for charging and for data both. But it's got that 4-switch, got that great. This lights up. I'll try to make sure that can be seen in something later on. But really, really cool looking. Got the double feature Atari 2600 and 7800 Pac Man on one cart. It's one of those ones where you just flip a switch on the back to tell them which way you want to play. Then we've got useless instructions. Let's see, another little box down here. I am probably cables, I would guess, by the size. Various cables and cords. But I love even the boxing just has that great Pac-Man styling on it. If I can get it out. And yeah, data cable, also for charging, and HDMI as expected. No plug, but fortunately I have plenty of those. But you got to make sure you put it in a good enough plug that it could charge it the way it's supposed to. A little disappointed that it didn't give the boxed version of the Pac-Man double feature. It is in a nice little sleeve, but I was kind of hoping it would be boxed because I do collect boxed games, but still very nice. There's a switch, like I mentioned. You kind of flip the switch. One of the switches, just 2 games on here, so just one of those switches is going to be used. But flip that to let it know if you want to play the 2600 version or the 7800 version. What else we got here? I assume, again, we're talking charging cables and stuff like that. Yeah, charging / data cable and plugs, dongle to use it wirelessly that will work on both either your USB port on your computer or the console itself, and a Pac-Man wireless 2600 controller. I've already had the Pinky version. I've had that for quite a while. Even when I didn't think I was going to have one of these consoles, I love these controllers, and they do work with the original 2600. So nice setup, console, controller, looks great. Can't wait to play. All right, so I've got it hooked to my monitor, my gaming monitor. I'm gonna let it just sit for a minute because I want you to see how long it takes to get from turning it on to loading the game and actually getting to play Pac-Man. If you're used to playing games on modern consoles, not that big of a deal, but compared to an original model Atari vintage console, it's pretty huge. Get in here and I realized this is widescreen. It just doesn't look as stretched out as I expected. It actually doesn't look too bad, but it is widescreen, and I realized there is a switch on the back that I didn't notice when I was doing the unboxing that lets you choose between 16 by 9 and 4 by 3. Again, this looks better than I thought it would have, but we're going to play it the way it's meant to be played, so we're going to go ahead and get out of this, and we're going to go back into the game in 4 by 3 as it was intended. Not going to make you wait through the whole loading screen again. That is something that you're going to have to deal with every time you restart one of these games because it's going to take you all the way back. So it is not quick. Even just hitting reset does take you a while, but back into 4 by 3, nice more square aspect ratio as this was intended to be. Latency is a little bit of an issue here. I knew that was going to be the case. It's an emulator. It's not using the same technology as we used originally on those old consoles, which were everything was instant, zero latency, zero lag. So this is going to take a little bit of getting used to. It's not game breaking, but I'm going back and watching the video and noticing, I can see here that I was touching those ghosts, but when I was playing it, I felt like it was a good second behind. So that is going to take a little bit of getting used to. Now for the real star of the show, the 7800 version of Pac Man. Now this is not a 7800 version of Pac Man from the 80s when the Atari 7800 first came out. This is a new version created by Bob DeCrescenzo, who is a very popular homebrew designer for the Atari 7800. Lots of great games, lots of versions of Pac Man that he's put out. So when they decided to make this, they've made a number of games that Bob had come out with over the years, official, and Atari has actually published them themselves. And so when they were making this double feature, they actually turned to Bob to put his version of Pac Man out. It is a beautiful port of the arcade version. I am very much looking forward to spending a little bit more time with this version. It is very beautiful. In just a few minutes that I've played with it, I am loving this version of Pac Man. I wanted to try out a couple of vintage games and see how they played on here, so I decided to whip out Berserk, one of my favorites, always a good one to play, and just see how it works. Very nice. Latency is, again, still a little bit of an issue, but again, not game-breaking. This is still fun. It's funny, I've actually noticed the latency problems a little bit more on the 2600 versions than the 7800 versions. I'm not sure why. I don't know if that's just a me thing. That is entirely possible that it's just a me thing, but I always have fun playing the Berserk, so the 2600 version does run great on here if you were wondering. I believe Pole Position 2 was the original Pac-Man title for the 7800 back in the 80s, and I also believe this is the first time I have ever played it. I'm a big Pole Position fan. I was a fan of Pole Position in the arcades, fan of it on the 2600 when I was a kid, and more recently the 5200 as I've rediscovered that this past year. And this plays great. I hate to say it, as big a fan as I am of the 5200 version, I think this plays even better. It looks great. I'm still terrible at it, but the latency is not as noticeable here as it was on the 2600 version games. For whatever reason, the 2600 version of Pac Man is the one that killed me most with the latency. But this is very playable. This is very nice. I highly suggest if you got a 7800 or a 7800 Plus, check out Pole Position 2. This is about the most fun I've had on this console so far. A few things. First, I wanted to add a section on updating to the latest firmware, but I could not get it to work. I hooked it up to the computer, I followed all of the instructions, and it kept getting to step 4, and then it would just stop. It would say that it did not recognize the USB device. I went to the Atari Age forums, always the best place to find that kind of information, and they said two things. First, try switching the USB port, or try using another USB cable with something that you know for sure is a data cable. So I switched the port and nothing, didn't change anything. I didn't try the other cable at that time because I was using the cable that came with the device. So that's the one that instructions say to use, and a lot of the people said make sure you're using the one that came with the device. That's what I was using. So I did not try switching that out at that time. I tried several times, got a little frustrated, really just wanted to play the games. So it was on what I knew was a workable firmware. It's the one that everyone was updating to around Christmas. So I knew it would at least play the games I wanted to play today, and that's the footage that you see in the video. So earlier today, I decided to try again. I've already got all the other footage, but I said, let's just give it a try. And you know what? Let's go ahead. Let's try another data cable. I have a million of them laying around. I'm sure you do too. And sure enough, worked right out the gate. No problem. It was quick. Brought me up to the latest version of the firmware. So just for your reference, if you run into that problem, go ahead and try another one of your data cables, even if the one that came with it doesn't work for some reason, and it'll be fine. So far, I haven't noticed a difference. I was wondering if it would help with load times, but no. If you've played modern games on modern consoles, you are used to load times. But if you are primarily a retro cartridge console gamer, this could seem pretty long, but it's not the end of the world. I have been on consoles that took a lot longer to load. Just be a little patient. It's going to get there and you're going to have a good time. Latency is a bigger issue. The original consoles had zero latency, and so the games were built around that. The timing is so important to it. But these do have some latency. Running it through an emulator does create some latency. But it's not quite as bad as it looks in the video. I'm running it through not just the emulator, but I'm also running it through a capture card, so that adds a little bit more latency. A little for fun comparison, I have mentioned several times that the Plus models are smaller than the originals. So here it is side by side with my original 2600 back from the 80s, and you can see that the Plus model is significantly smaller than the original. So do I like it? Yeah, actually I do, and not just because it's so cool looking. If I'm playing solo, I'm probably going to take one of my vintage consoles, hook it up to the CRT, and party like it's 1982. But the beauty of this console is the simplicity. I can easily take this into the other room, hook it up to the big screen, and share that experience with my wife, with my friends, with any of my nieces or nephews that come over and want to check out the console that introduced me to my lifelong love of gaming. And I think that's the point. For most people, close enough is close enough. And I'm genuinely grateful to the leadership of Atari for not letting this console that we all love so much go quietly into the night. But what do you think? Did you grow up with Atari, or is this your introduction to the brand? And what games would you like to play on this little beautiful piece of retro tech? Thank you for watching, especially those who made it all the way to the end. And don't forget to like and subscribe. It really does help the channel grow. And as always, I'll see you next time.